Hey there everyone, Mychal Bryan here from the Oraculos School of Astrology with yet another question and answer segment where practicing astrologers bring me their questions and I provide them answers based on my astrological practice. If you're enjoying these Q&A segments and you'd like to work with either myself or an OSA certified astrologer, then by all means check out our website where you can book yourself a high-quality astrological consultation today. Also, I answer many of these questions and more in my book, Mastering Traditional Astrology, A Depth of Beginning in the Celestial Art, which you can buy a copy of on Amazon.com. And if you'd like to become a professional astrologer, then check out our Professional Astrologers Diploma program, as well as our Medical Astrologers Diploma program by visiting the education page of our website.
I do have one more. Am I allowed?
Okay, go.
Again, I started out reading texts and, hearing about the Hellenistic perspective, which, uses what the celestial houses. In the Oraculos approach, do you give any layer of meaning to things that are in aspect by whole sign, celestial house, or is that simply something that we can disregard?
Okay, oy vey. So the question is, how do I feel about whole sign aspects? I don't use whole sign anything. I don't use whole sign anything. I don't use whole sign houses. I don't use whole sign aspects. I don't use whole sign anything whatsoever in the entirety of my astrological existence. I don't. And the reason for that is because I am a very heavily orb influenced astrologer. And I don't even think that that's just the case because of my practice of Uranian astrology and cosmobiology, which tend to use very tight orbs. I think that that's just the case in terms of my understanding of life. And I think that within a lot more of my traditional education, even outside of the realm of astrology, precision matters. And precision definitely matters to me. And I think because of the type of astrology I do, as many of you know, when I was starting to get known as an astrologer in the US, a big part of that was because I kept on giving blind chart readings in public where I would read a person's chart without knowing any background information about them at all and using that as my way of making a name for myself in the astrological community. So people know me as the guy who does blind chart readings, and I'm okay with that designation because I think that blind chart readings is the most superior way to test the skills of an astrologer. As a person who is known in the astrological world for giving blind chart readings, I would never, ever in a bajillion, million, thousand, quadrillion years put my reputation behind a whole sign aspect. And the reason for that, and I think I need to qualify that, I would never put my reputation behind a whole sign aspect with an egregiously large orb, which I've seen many people do before in the name of practicing traditional Hellenistic astrology. It's not my jam. And it's not my jam because I don't like to get things wrong. And accuracy matters to me just about as much as precision. And I don't know if I use a whole sign square between Venus at 0 degrees of Pisces and Saturn at 25 degrees of Sagittarius. I don't know that whether or not if I use that whole sign square, it will be wrong or not. But based on my practice of concrete, event-based, blind chart reading astrology, it doesn't seem to be accurate. I just think that this is the difference between writing about astrology and researching about astrology and all of this other stuff about astrology and actually practicing astrology. And one of the things for me that I will never give up is my actual client practice, because practicing with people is the only thing that actually lets you know what's going on. And practicing with people is the only thing that keeps your finger on the pulse of how astrology is manifesting within the lives of people. As a concrete, event-based astrologer, I don't have the luxury of holding on to a theory or a concept for very long if that thing doesn't seem to hold true within the larger context of the astrology that I practice. I don't have the luxury of holding on to a wishful thought that perhaps my Venus at 5 degrees of Pisces is going to be afflicted by my Saturn at 25 degrees of Gemini, and therefore I'm going to have a Venus-Saturn story within my life, because that's what should be the case based on a whole sign aspect. I can't practice astrology like that, because if I did, I would find out very soon within the context of my concrete, event-based, blind chart reading astrology practice, whether or not that thing was valid or not. So I think there are a lot of thoughts that people have about how astrology works and when astrology works and why astrology works and the conditions necessary for astrology to work that I think are wonderful on paper, but I don't care about paper. I care about practice. And I think that that's been my overall orientation to everything my entire life. I was trained as an artist within very hands-on, rigorous, practical environments, and I take that concept and that idea of training and practice into every field of my professional practice, including my astrology. So I believe in the hands-on approach. I believe in the application of practice, and I believe in figuring things out through practice. And the things that I figured out through practice tells me that the tighter the orb, the stronger the impact of the influence between those two planets. And with that as my overall thesis and my overall framework within how I practice astrology, there's no part of my constitution that could ever jump on the whole sign bandwagon, not the whole sign houses bandwagon or the whole sign aspect bandwagon. And it's because I practice real astrology. And I think, and once again, this is just me, but I think that if we dedicated our lives to practicing more real one-on-one astrology in the gutters of people's lives, one-on-one, then we would have a much more pragmatic set of astrological rules upon which we can rely. I think one of the problems with astrology today is that we tend to rely on the charts of celebrities as being our example chart for how things are manifesting within our lives. So we find people using the charts of past presidents and their wives, the charts of pop singers and actors, the charts of famous painters or famous musicians or famous athletes as a means of justifying some of the thoughts that they have regarding some of the astrological principles they hold. I've never in my entire astrological career given a chart reading or given a demonstration of astrology based on an assessment of the charts of celebrities. It is the most lackluster application of astrology in the world, in my opinion. And backing up a bit, I did give a Uranian astrology talk once in which I used the charts of Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung, but that's because I really like Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung. So who knows, maybe I'm a hypocrite because I say I never use the charts of celebrities and there I was using the charts of Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung. But that is a once in a lifetime situation because in general, I feel as if I have more authority to speak about the charts of my actual clients because I've sat with those clients. I've heard their stories. I know how their stories have manifested within the larger unfolding of their lives. And that for me feels like a more realistic realm from which to provide astrological demonstrations than the charts of celebrities. And within that realm of practicing astrology, real astrology with real people, a whole sign square between a Venus and a Saturn just doesn't cut it. Especially if there's a 25-degree orb between those two planets. A whole sign trine just doesn't cut it. Because these things don't seem to make sense. So that's just me on my tiny island of Oraculos. I'm not the only astrological opinion that exists within the universe. And you could take it or leave it. But in general, I think if we are to practice more reliable astrology, I think that's what it really boils down to. I think that our astrology in general needs to become more reliable, it needs to become more streamlined, and it's very easy to streamline a reliable system of astrology. You just have to practice the astrology and see what works. And I think that if we all practiced the astrology and saw what worked, there would be a much larger consensus between us as astrologers about things that actually do work, as opposed to things that we think work just because someone wrote a book about it.
Thank you. And you know, you can't argue with those blind chart readings.
No, you can't. And I'm very good at them. I hope you enjoy our Q&A segment, and if you have astrological questions that you'd like for me to answer, then please feel free to share them in the comment section down below. And remember, my book Mastering Traditional Astrology, A Depth of Beginning in the Celestial Art is now out and ready to be purchased. So pick yourself up a copy by visiting Amazon.com today. And if you want to become a professional astrologer, please feel free to check out any of the diploma programs that we offer here at the Oraculos School of Astrology by visiting oraculosastrology.com. I hope to see you in class soon.